Factory applied weathering can be a contentious issue for many associated with railway modelling, and there is a broad spectrum of views on whether it should be provided or not. With the help of some virtual friends, I want to present the case for and against factory weathering before getting into my own opinion based on my own experience of factory weathered models since I started this channel. The scope of today's discussion is going to be with regard to the provision of factory applied weathering as an option in addition to the pristine version of a model. For example, if a particular freight wagon has been produced with say 6 different running numbers, 2 of those would be weathered models. This has already been done today by some manufacturers for a limited number of models. The debate is whether all manufacturers should provide weathered options across a broader range of their models. For models of preserved locomotives or rolling stock, weathering really doesn't apply, so I'm excluding those from this debate. Also, more modern passenger trains tend to be kept in a relatively clean state, so weathering for those would tend to be kept to the underbody area with a very light level of weathering on the top body. Apart from that, all freight models and older non-preserved locomotives and coaching stock are in the mix for consideration. So let's get into the debate. In this section, I'm going to get 8 virtual contributors to provide their input based on where they sit in the railway modelling world. 4 will be supporting the case for factory weathering, and 4 will have arguments against it. You may agree or disagree with the points raised, but it's always useful to listen to the different perspectives. I will summarise the points made in the summary section later in the video. So let's get into it.
As a modeler who has done a bit of weathering in the past, I still like the convenience of factory weathered models that can save me the hassle of having to do the weathering myself, or the cost of having to get the models weathered professionally. I find the majority of factory weathered models are usually good enough for my needs, and are as good as anything I could do myself.
As a collector and contract buyer, I will only ever purchase models in a new or as new state. If a model has had any custom weathering applied, it's generally not an option for me, even if the weathering has been done to a very high standard. I need models to be in the state they were in when they left the factory, be that in either pristine or weathered finish.
When purchasing additions to an existing rake, I want the level and style of weathering to match reasonably well. Custom weathered models can differ greatly in the quality and level of weathering applied. It can be hard work adapting the weathering of a pre-owned model to fit into my layout. I don't have this problem with factory weathered models, and hence, I prefer to go with these where there is an option to do so.
As someone who likes weathered models, either done by myself or professionally, I can find it challenging when it comes to selling them on, and tend to have to drop the price a bit. I don't have this problem with factory weathered models that I haven't added any additional weathering to.
As a model manufacturer, we see no value in providing factory weathered models. It will never be possible to provide a level of weathering that customers will be satisfied with. Those customers that really want weathering will either do it themselves or get it done professionally.
As an experienced modeler, I either do my own weathering, or get my models weathered professionally. Factory weathered models are rubbish, and I would never go near them. They are a total waste of money.
As a model manufacturer, providing a weathered option for our models would significantly complicate our manufacturing process, adding additional process steps, new part codes, and added spares inventory. Customers who really require weathering will either add it themselves or get it done professionally. We don't see the demand from our customers to justify the overhead involved.
As a model shop owner, I like to be able to offer a weathered option to my customers. The negative for me is to have to deal with the extra inventory involved. and it can be challenging to have sufficient stock levels of both the pristine and weathered versions in order to satisfy both sets of customers.
My own experience with factory weathered models has been a mixed one, with certain models being to a level I would be happy with and others not so much so. Let's work through some examples to see which ones hit the mark for me and which ones didn't. First up is the oldest model I'm going to look at here. I believe this Irish class 071 from Murphy Models really looks the part in its factory weathered form. At a very small price increment over the pristine version, this is definitely a hit. This Bachmann coach has a strange form of weathering on the roof, but I've seen this in real life along with the mottling along the side. It won't be to everyone's taste, but I think it's pretty effective for what it's trying to represent here. Now this class 47 from Bachmann has a type of weathering I don't particularly like. Front and back are okay, but the sides and bogies don't work for me. It's more of a speckled matte paint job than actual real weathering. A miss in my opinion, I'm afraid. This rare class 450 from Bachmann featured weathering, and this is one of the reasons I purchased it. It has good weathering on the bogies and underbody, and has just enough on the upper body to take the sheen off. This one works for me. These Hellion cargo wagons are some of my favourite freight wagons, having just the level of weathering and graffiti I was looking for. In real life, cargo wagons can appear totally blackened out, but I'm happy with what Hellion have delivered here. The next model is representative of a form of weathering Bachmann had on a number of models and is similar to the class 47 we looked at earlier. While I like this particular model, the weathering here is not up to what it should be and has probably put a lot of people off factory weathering. This weathered coach is somewhat better than the previous locomotive, and while I'm fine with it overall, it too leaves a bit to be desired from a weathering perspective. The weathered ICAs from Dapol are interesting in that they aren't a weathered version of the original pristine wagon. Instead, they're an alternative build using different coloured plastics and metals and a different paint finish. Still, I think they've hit the mark here in terms of balancing production cost with the weathering effect they were going for. This lightly weathered class 57 is what I was looking for here. Just enough to take the shine off, but not too much. This last example from Dapol blew me away when I first saw it. It looks like a custom weathered job and is probably the best example I've seen of a factory weathered locomotive. It's overdue for review along with the sound option I purchased for it, so watch out for more on this in one of the future videos. Personally, I will always look for factory weathered versions of freight models. My take is that I'd like to see weathered options for all freight models, as well as for selected locomotives and coaching stock based on what would be representative of real life. I'd like to see manufacturers consult with weathering professionals to ensure that what they deliver is as good as it can be within the cost constraints they have to work with. I'm not proposing we take anything away from the Arthurs or professional weatherers of this world, but I'm looking for an affordable weathering option for the masses. And so we get to the summary. The points made by our protagonists are as follows. The case for factory weathering includes convenience, cost saving, preservation of resale value, and consistency. The case against: the acceptability of factory weathered models, the lack of demand for such models, the manufacturing overhead involved, and the inventory overhead involved for both manufacturers and retailers. Are there any other points that warrant inclusion in this discussion that haven't been made yet? Please let me know in the comments. To weather it all and to what level is definitely a matter of taste and also one of authenticity. Finding a happy medium that will satisfy most modelers is the challenge, I guess, and one of the reasons some manufacturers have shied away from it totally. The extreme and purest end of the spectrum will always require custom work, which is fine, and that comes at a cost, of course. For the rest of us, it's a case of getting something affordable that is good enough and a little bit closer to reality than a shiny, pristine model. Is there an out-and-out winner here? I believe the answer comes down to what the majority of modelers actually want. If the demand isn't there for weathering in the first place, then it's a moot point. So this is where you come in. I have put up a poll on the community page of the channel. Please tick the option that most represents you. The poll is anonymous, and I'll cover the results as part of a future video. This is your chance to have a say on the topic of factory weathered models, so please use it and share the link to the poll with other modelers you know. The bigger the response to the poll, the more potential influence it will have. So thank you for joining today's debate, what can be a thorny subject for some modelers and some manufacturers as well. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. So in the meantime, keep safe and happy modelling.